Hello and welcome to Body in the City. My name is Jasmine and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Rebecca Gayle-Phipps and she's with us today from Reeset. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. I brought the sunshine with me too. So
you did. What a nice day today on this early Sunday morning.
I know. Fresh, crisp.
Crisp air outside. So yes, welcome to Body in the City. As you know, we are the place of wellness and all things wellness. And it only made sense to have you here today, being that I've known you for a little while. I'd say pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, yeah. We met in corporate capacity.
In the corporate capacity, which we loved. And thought we'd bring you here today to discuss all things around wellness and retreats and all the good stuff that you have working on at the moment. So in true Body in the City style, obviously I read out the introduction for my guests. So I'll read it out to our people to let them know a little bit about you. So as mentioned, today we're joined by Rebecca, the founder of Reeset, a holistic wellness initiative offering retreats, sound healing, and mindful events. As a yoga teacher, sound healer, and entrepreneur, Becca is passionate about making wellness accessible with a focus on uplifting marginalised communities. We'll explore her journey, the science of sound healing, and discuss her vision for a more equitable and accessible wellness space. Welcome to you.
Woohoo! That's a great intro.
I love those intros. It's like my mic drop moment.
Yeah. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet me.
Nice to meet you, right? Cool. So tell us a little bit about, let's go back to basics. What is a retreat?
Great question. A retreat is a healing space. Ideally.
Right. Agree.
I think if we were to strip it back, that's why you would go on a retreat to heal. And to rest.
Agreed.
But I think the rest comes as part of the healing. So.
Absolutely. And what would you say makes your reset, so your retreats, different from those that are out there currently?
Yeah, I love this question. I think that I have worked in corporate wellness for many years, and I've been fortunate enough to have met some of the most incredible healers doing incredible things. So what makes our space different is that it's fairly accessible. We're not quite there with everything, but we're all on the ground floor. We have ramps up to the pools, those sorts of things. But really what is different about us is that I am out here sourcing healers from marginalised communities and making what we do accessible to all rather than to the few.
Right. Amazing. And I think as well, that's kind of how and why Body in the City, or at least the media arm of it, was born. It was to showcase our community that there's people that look like us in this wellness space offering these services. So not only do you have the benefit of going to it, but you have the benefit of going to it and meeting people that look like yourself, which I feel like for quite a long time was difficult. It was difficult to find spaces or retreats that held space for people that looked necessarily like us or came from economic backgrounds or similar spaces that we did. So really important work I think you're doing, which is obviously why I'm so keen to interview you today.
I'm really excited.
And then what would you say inspired you to kind of create the space specifically for marginalised communities? Did you feel that you were ostracised from certain spaces? What made you specifically tailor to those needs?
So I would say that we aren't specifically for people from marginalised communities. And I say that because we live in an intersectional world.
Absolutely.
And actually there are so many facets of marginalisation now that it is important for us to recognise that healing requires space, rest, but also direction. And I have been to retreats for the last 15 years and I'm largely the only brown person there. So I always ask my friends, why wouldn't you go on a retreat? And they would say, I don't see myself there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where did that go wrong?
Right.
What stage did that go wrong in this product being launched and me ending up there and you not? And there's also something around like when I'm in a healing space without people that look like me,
the healing looks different.
The healing's different.
The healing looks different.
Minimized.
Yeah. And I think as well, I can speak for myself, but when I go to a retreat space and I see people that resonate with me, let's say, it don't necessarily look like me because no one looks like us, but people that resonate, have similarities, things in common with, I feel like, again, your healing is different. And I think when people hold space, which is what it is, for marginalized communities, you're allowing them to congregate, come together, and all share an experience that's familiar with each other, and not feel like you have to necessarily pretend to be someone to fit into that particular space. Because I often felt that, like you said, going to places and being one of few people that didn't look the same, and having or feeling like you had to mold yourself, not to fit in, but you kind of do, isn't it? Like, you know, there's certain things you've got to talk about. That's just what everyone else is talking about. You're just there. You're an observer. And it's nice to go to a space where you don't have to be an observer. You can come as you are. You know, as yourself. So, no, it's really important stuff. And then for those people who may say, okay, you know, I'm hesitant to join a retreat because of those examples that we gave, or due to cultural or accessibility concerns, like, what would be your advice?
Yeah, fantastic. I would say there is always a retreat for you. I think I'm working now with teachers who are actually creating spaces that are specifically for certain groups. In 2 weeks' time, we have a retreat that is only for women of colour.
Oh, wow.
And that means that the starting point of their healing journey is more familiar to them and is probably through shared experience.
Right.
And when you've only got 5 to 7 days in a space, there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to unload in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Before you can even begin the healing. And I think actually sometimes we have to close the borders to make sure that the people that are coming have a focused intention for their healing.
Agreed.
Next year we have a retreat that is only for gay men. And it's the same. The teacher is teaching trauma-informed practices that are specifically going to benefit men who have been marginalised.
Right, have those experiences.
Yeah. Because heteronormativity is a thing. And we are also really passionate about having smaller groups. So we have a maximum of 12 guests. Sometimes you'll go on a retreat, there's 30 people and one teacher. And I don't know how the one teacher is meant to help 30 people heal by themselves. So it's really important to us that we keep it small, we keep it focused, and we create and we work and create with great healers.
Amazing.
So that will always be our mission.
There's some people that say to me, one person in particular comes to mind, and I was speaking to her about retreats because Bodmin City too will be getting to events very soon. And her immediate response to it was, I'd like to go, but I don't want to be trauma dumped on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I thought that's really interesting because I didn't think of it that way. And I haven't necessarily been to a retreat that I felt that's happened to me. But that's the first thing she said. She said, I want to go, but I don't necessarily want to go to be trauma dumped on because I don't want to then leave that space having everybody else's load on me. Do you feel as though that retreats can be that way? And is that something that we should collectively think about, not necessarily avoiding because you're holding space for people, but how do you balance that? How do you allow people to come, express, release, grow, and network without affecting the people that are also coming there that want to just rest, reset, breathe, have some alone time? It's a really hard, it's really hard to kind of please everybody. But do you think there's a way that in which we can do that to like prevent people from dumping?
I think there's something around, for example, I am passionate about sound healing. And part of me is passionate about it because there is no verbal cues. There is no projection of my my point of departure is kind of irrelevant to the sound. And whilst I sometimes open up things for people, which I'm there to have I always try to have a one-to-one with everyone after I've done a sound bath.
Nice.
The power of sound outweighs anything else, right? Like the healing is in the bowls, and it's in the gongs, and it's ancient. You know, we're talking about 4000 BC is the first gong. It's not a new phenomenon. And I hear you. There are some teachers that I've been to a sharing circle of theirs before, but they're not present enough to hold the space, which then ends up being trauma dumping.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that if we open up things like sharing circles, or we open up trauma-informed spaces, then the teacher has to be trained
to do so, to
and experienced.
Or maybe make the one-to-one, make it more one-to-one.
Yeah.
Make it more smaller groups. Or what I think is also a good idea is like bring like a therapist onto the retreat so that people can have a little time, 15, 20 minutes. I think that's always something that I think that more retreat holders should consider for those who might not necessarily want to be in a circle but still want to be a part of the group, you know. It's interesting.
The last retreat that I supported on was New Year's, and my partner is a life coach, and he came on to support her because she had nearly 30 guests, and to have one-to-ones with people who actually wanted to open up further and explore themselves.
That's it.
So I hear you, and I also, there's something around the pressure that yoga teachers do put on themselves when they hold retreats, because they may have just done a yoga teacher training course and now they're teaching the asana.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to hold space.
But literally, how can you teach something that you're still being taught? I think that's what it is with yoga. You're like a lifelong student. And it's courageous, and I admire guests who do that. I admire people that go in straight off the bat. That was me. Like, I jumped off a plane. I was like, cool, first studio you can go to, let's get a class. And it was like, in itself, it's healing, it's like training, it's experience. But like you said, when you're holding space in retreat settings and people have this expectation for you to have it all together and be ready to deal with everything I have, it's quite a lot on the individual to handle, especially if it's just one person for like 1 to 30 people. So no, it's a really important point, just to make sure that those who are getting into that space of wellness and events to don't bite off more than you can chew. I would say it's really interesting. So just let's talk about sound healing. Which I love. I really love sound healing. And also guests can see one of Becca's beautiful crystal bowls on the table. Tell me a little bit about the history and the science behind sound healing. I know you mentioned that it's very, very ancient. It's not a new age thing. But what are some of the benefits that someone can receive from having a sound bath or a sound healing session?
So I came to sound when I was running around London and couldn't keep up with my life, my social calendar, my mortgage payments, all of the things that generally built into this it was 6 months of pure anxiety. And I would go to bed and I would go to sleep dreaming about what might happen the next day and all of those things. And I kept reading about sound baths and I was like, oh God, I have to take my swimsuit and I'm going to have to, all these things. and then I was like, and then eventually it happened and I had my swimsuit in my bag just in case, but no swimsuit required. Who knew? And I went to an incredible studio called Remind near Victoria. And I did a sound bath with crystal bowls. And I came out feeling like I had 2 weeks in India and I was like a new human because my brain just had a rest. And the session was 45 minutes. It probably had a rest for 15 of those minutes, but it was revolutionary. And I was like, how have I not
done this before?
How have I not got here before this? And how have I let it get so bad that I can't even find a break for myself? So for me, it was that was the start of my journey with sound. And then a couple of years later, I'd started meeting different practitioners and sound healers. And I now say that, like, yes, sound healing will help with stress and anxiety, etc. But the reality is I think it just gives people a break. And that's a physical break, but the most important one is it's a mental break. I
appreciate it. I remember the first time I did a sound healing session and it was 1-to-1.
Okay, wow.
Luckily, by a good friend of mine who's a sound healer, and she had me under like a copper triangle, like a pyramid as well. And I was like wrapped up, I was really cozy, and it was like an hour session, and it was so sensational because, like you said, your mind can rest, like your parasympathetic system just completely shuts down and it rests, but you're awake fully. I was awake fully, and I was able to hear all the different noises. I was able to really like appreciate what was happening around me, but I almost felt like I was sleeping too. It's a really hard thing to describe. It's like a form of meditation for me. And I remember getting up and feeling really rested at the time and just like rejuvenated, but had loads of energy once I'd like reset. Why is it that you think that, obviously accessibility and it becoming more and more popular, but why in wellness in general, why does it take us so long to search for these practices and modalities when we've been burnt out for a long time? Like, it takes us to get to rock bottom, having the heart palpitations, the anxiety, the stress levels through the roof, to be like, okay, I need to do something for this. And it becomes like a reactive thing as opposed to like proactive. Okay, let me go like once every couple of months. Let me have a little reset, like your retreat. Why, obviously for basic reasons, but why else do you think that is, that we don't feel we deserve it in the moment, that we wait until it's bad to go and do something?
I think that I've grown up in South London and I'm mixed race, half English, half Jamaican. And no one ever taught me about wellness. And I don't know if I've ever talked about mental health.
Right.
And then I was fortunate enough to get a corporate job for a brand that does yoga wear. And that's when I started to meet all these incredible teachers doing all these wonderful things.
Right.
And even then the intrigue wasn't enough for me to necessarily take that step forward. Largely, like it has been a white dominated industry, and I don't think at the point in time I had seen a single person of colour leading a sound healing session. So you step over all these different hurdles, right? Like, firstly, you're like, do I belong in this space?
Yeah.
Do I see myself in this space? And largely, for me, visually, it was a no. And then you've got the next part of the equation, which is, can I afford to go to the space? Like, £25 for a 45-minute session where I don't even know what's going to happen is quite an investment.
Right.
And then I guess thirdly, it's always around, is my community present, and am I going to be good enough? And I didn't have any friends that would go. And so you toodle on down and you're like, I'm getting there to a teacher that I've never met and people that I've never seen before.
Can be quite daunting for people.
Can be quite daunting. And sadly, it takes you to almost breaking point to push yourself over those three hurdles, and then you walk through the door.
And you realise, oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Oh, this is what I've needed.
It's not as bad as I thought it was. I needed this ages ago.
So that's when we talk about equity and making wellness more accessible. If we can take away those three boundaries and hurdles, then we can make it so that people step into the space before they get to the bottom.
This is it. And I hope that this is what this podcast does. It allows people to think about their wellness in a different way. And I think just going back to when you mentioned mental health wasn't something necessarily that was discussed in the home. I mean, we've mentioned this before on podcasts, like, you know, it was, especially in our community, I'd say mental health was quite stigmatized. It wasn't necessarily something that we openly discussed, not in my household anyway. I can't speak for everybody, but it wasn't something that naturally we spoke about or did anything about. So it wasn't on the top of our priorities list, you know. And if you go back and you look at our parents and grandparents' generation, it's about survival, isn't it? Like, it was about food on the table, it was about clothes on their back and education. And wellness was kind of like way back in there. Like, you understand? It didn't really exist. So for us now, I do feel, not pressure, but I feel responsible. I feel a responsibility to break down that barrier and say, okay, let's take what we know. Let's look at what we've been shown and how we've always known it, and let's rewrite it. Let's rewrite this new version of it. Let's create and hold space. Let's make it accessible. Let's talk about it. Let's hold these retreats and all these different things and invite people to experience it. And hopefully we can hope that, our kids' generation and their kids' generation, it becomes a norm. Like every Saturday they're going to go to a class or do something for themselves, and hopefully don't get to the point of burnout. Or if they're feeling mental strain, they can come and speak about it straight away. Yeah. And I do really firmly believe that, I don't know if there's going to be, hopefully there'll be studies that can look at the comparison like 20 years from now and look back, and those people who had more accessibility to things that boosted their mental well-being as opposed to those who didn't, hopefully it'll be a reduction in suicide rates. Hopefully it'll be a reduction in just general,
mental
unwellness. No, precisely.
I think there's responsibility everywhere, and this is where we talk about systemic oppression and
absolutely.
How actually, yes, there is a responsibility to bring wellness into the home. And yesterday I was with a wonderful teacher called Nat, who has just been commissioned by Wandsworth Council to start teaching yoga in 18 primary schools.
Oh, amazing.
So if there's investment in stuff like that, then, a kid who's 5 years old is going to go home and tell mum and dad that they did yoga today.
Yeah.
And actually they feel X, Y, Z about it. I'm not going to put it on everyone that they're all going to feel great and it's, for everybody. And they've had the opportunity to experience it.
Yeah.
So there's responsibility for us as homemakers or parents, however you show up for your community. And then there's also responsibility to put that pressure on the government to actually invest in wellbeing practices at a young age.
Yeah, early doors.
You have to
Let's get in there early. And I guess to just go back to the point about accessibility for our community and there being a lack of representation as well. I feel like it's changed, especially like post-COVID. There's a lot more representation now than there was like 10 years ago, I would say. Do you think it's coming from a good place? I don't know how to like really execute this question, but sometimes you feel like, okay, there's a lot now, like you're really, really pushing it. There's only people of colour in this brochure. It's like, are you doing that on purpose? Like just to kind of, is it performative basically? Or do you are you holding space for us? And sometimes I do query brands who do that. I do query brands who, especially during lockdown and with the protests and Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot of performative action in the wellness space, especially for corporate brands whom we shall not name, were doing. And then you think to yourself, like, are we doing that just to jump on a bandwagon, or is this something that you truly believe in? Are you holding space for us? Are you making it inclusive? Are you representing us in the best way that you possibly can? Do you feel that is the case? And does your brand promote that as well?
I would say I worked for a brand called Lululemon. I worked for a brand called Gymshark.
That's how I met you. Yeah,
and that's how we met.
Yeah.
And that was throughout the Black Lives Matter era.
Yeah,
let's just say recent era. And I think now that cancel culture is such a thing that companies with however many employees, they get whistleblown if they're not actually performing what they are projecting outwards, inwards. And I am super proud to have been in those companies at those times, because actually they were doing the work.
Good. And
they were getting called out, right? So what came first, chicken or egg?
Wow.
So it's a little bit different, having been in those cultures, company cultures, and seeing the reactivity of something as big as Black Lives Matters on a company was incredible and fast and all those things, because they got the cash.
Right.
If you are a small to mid-sized business and you have employees, even if you have 5 employees, but you're unable and you're unskilled and you don't know how to have these conversations,
this is it,
or to make these plans, or what even is appropriate. Things change all the time. Like, how do you navigate that?
Right.
So I think we all have a responsibility in calling stuff out.
Agreed.
And I am the first person to say, if I get it wrong, please tell me.
Let me know. Absolutely.
And I'm a one-man band at the moment, one-person band, sorry. And when we do grow and when we do welcome on board new people, I would love that we are all on that journey together and that we all
look out for each other at the end of the day. Yeah.
And the responsibility that we have as a brand has to live and breathe daily. It can't just be like, oh, back in 2001 we did that thing. Yeah. It can't be that. We have to keep growing.
Keep it going.
We have to keep evolving. And as I said, when we get it wrong, because it's not going to be an if, we need to learn and we need to move quickly.
Yeah.
And apologise wherever we...
I agree. I feel it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to see that it happens the way it should. I think as well, sometimes people question, okay, there's lots of spaces for BIPOC people and people of colour that are specific for marginalised communities. In your opinion, why do you think it's taken not so long, but longer than it needs to have been to grow the way it has? I mean, for a long time, this space was dominated by white people, white women especially, have had it for a very long time. Why do we feel that it's only now where it's kind of gaining momentum and that people of colour are feeling confident on holding space for themselves? Yeah. Why is it taking so long?
I think if we go back to your previous point around generational priorities.
Absolutely, yeah.
If I look back, my grandfather came here from Jamaica in the Windrush era. My dad was barely keeping himself off the streets.
Right.
Had me really young, and so it just hasn't. They have to put food on the table, and that's the priority. And now for us, I don't speak for you, but millennials, we are exploring, and we have a different list of priorities.
Right.
I know that in the UK, at least, black people are 9 times more likely to be stop and search still. Yeah. We still have those
lots of barriers.
They follow us around everywhere we go, and it might not just be on the street. If you feel like if you're made to feel like a criminal all the time, then you go to work and you carry that. And
of course,
you have to find these spaces that are going to help you with that healing. And I think that we're finally starting to get there with having a voice to say, I need support, I need space, I need like-minded people. And I love I quote Denzel here. He's one of my favourite actors ever.
Love him.
He always said it's not colour, it's culture.
Right.
And actually how we have been brought up and how we have experienced identity-based
learning,
navigating is important to be shared in groups.
Absolutely. As well, just to add on to that, I think that many of the practices that happen today in wellness retreats and spaces, like you said with sound healing, isn't new stuff, right? And when you look back and you look at our culture, you look at the black history, you look at people of colour, we've had our practices for a really, really long time. And sometimes I do believe that it's also taken perhaps us longer to open and create this space for ourselves, because previously the spaces that were available weren't highlighting or weren't showcasing this. There wasn't showcasing the sound healing. They wasn't looking at ancestral practices, which was which what our ancestors were doing years and years and years ago. It wasn't really been held in those spaces then. But now I feel like where more people of colour are opening up these spaces, opening up these retreats, they're going back and they're digging up practices that their ancestors were practicing and they're bringing it to the 20th century. And I think that's really beautiful, to reignite something that's not new. We're not trying to recreate the wheel, but teach people that we've been doing this for a long time. You look at yoga and you look at the history of yoga. Yes, it has a lot of history and documented history in Hindu texts going back thousands of years. But then if you go prior to that, you'll see yoga movements on hieroglyphics in Egypt. You go back to Kemet and you see Kemetic yoga, which is, I believe, more popular in America than it is in the UK.
Currently, yes.
But you know what I mean? Just it's this like, I wouldn't say it's lack of representation. It's a lack of documentation heavily on Black history, as we just know in general. And whitewashing it and rebranding some things as their own over like course of years, centuries we're talking about. But it's really beautiful now that we're making this real effort to dig up this stuff, like, and to really make sense of it, piece it together and date it back and be like, hold on, we were doing this a long time ago. Like, we were making that ages ago. Like, we was doing that sun salutation.
Well, yeah.
Like, long time ago, you know? Like, so I think that too is another reason why spaces are popping up, and they're for our community, marginalised communities, because we're taking ownership. It's like we're taking it back a little bit, like, hold on, that's ours, or not necessarily ours, but we were also practicing that, or that was ours, and this is something that, you know, our grandparents used to do. Let's show you how it's really done, you know. And I think that's really, really beautiful. Like, I love Kemetic yoga, and the only place I can practice it is online. Like, and if there are like spaces in London, if you're a Kemetic yoga teacher in London, hit me up.
Please tell us.
Like, tell us where you are, hit us up. I'm really interested in it. Like, I do Sphinx pose and all these things that you can just like find bits and bobs, but again, it's a lot of our history has been erased, and I think it's really important for us to try to not dig up what we can, but celebrate.
We have to be celebrating this stuff.
Oh my God, that is the word, isn't it?
We have to be like sharing, celebrating, and actually like trying.
Yeah.
It's about, we're recording this in September, and it's about to be Black History Month.
Amazing.
And I'm trying to be present for that as well. It's not in Spain, and that's where I'm based, but I'm hosting some sound baths for Yoga Matters, and it's really like Black History Month shouldn't just be a month.
Of course. Black History every day.
Right. So, dear Lord, like, let's just celebrate it.
Literally.
I think it's also really important sometimes to just vocalise like where these practices come from.
Absolutely.
We'll go into a yoga studio and it's like upward dog, downward dog, leave.
Yeah.
And that isn't yoga. So I would always say, like, on my travel list coming up is like, I really want to go to Mongolia and learn drums. Learn the throat chanting. Really want to go to Madagascar and learn the drums. Like, these are native tribal healing circles. Yeah. And I shouldn't really be learning them from, you know, Bob in Brixton.
Shout out Bob in Brixton.
Shout out Bob. But if I can, and again, this is a very big privilege because it's not easy to just go to Mongolia. But if I can, I want to invest my money learning from wisdom holders that grew up in the household of healing in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's also just really, it's important for us to vocalise where these practices came from.
Oh, I agree so much. I'm big on that. I'm big on like going to the source.
Yeah.
As much as I can. Even when it came down to yoga teacher training that I did, I had to go back to India to do it. I wasn't going to be doing it in Camden. I needed to go to India. Yeah. Okay. I would love to have done it in somewhere in Africa, but I did it in India. And it's the same with Thai massage. I did it in Thailand because it matters to me to place the origin and to go back as far as you can with the resources that we have available to us and get the most authentic version that you can.
Yeah, incredible. You know?
You're now in Spain.
I am.
Exciting.
Who knew?
That's actually so like golden brown and lovely. Meanwhile, I look like Casper. However, you're in Majorca. Can I say that? You're in Majorca. Tell me what you're doing out there.
Yeah, so I have a love for all things Hispanic, and in my dream I was going to be opening a retreat centre in South America, but I told my mum that I wanted lots of kids, and she said she wouldn't fly that far to help me, so I had to find South America and Europe.
Compromise.
Which is where we found Majorca.
Beautiful.
And it's a full-on island vibe, and just the most magnetic, vibrational, healing earth I've ever felt. And I am in the south of the island, which is kind of the beach side. The whole of the island has over 250 beaches.
Lovely.
And then in the north, you've got the most majestic mountains. On the east, it's super rugged. And then on the west is kind of where the people are.
Right.
And yeah, that island has been everything and more for the last 2.5 years.
And this is where Reeset is.
And this is where Reeset is, yeah.
Excellent.
Really beautiful.
Sounds very dreamy. And just to help us to envision it, what does Reeset look like? I'm going to make sure that there's links and there's pictures and there's videos and stuff for our viewers to see. But paint a picture for us, like what does going to Reeset for a retreat look like?
Beautiful. You'll come off of the plane, you'll go down the motorway for maybe 10 minutes, and then you're driving straight into the countryside. Nice. We are a finca, a farm, on 5 acres of a land regeneration project. And Reeset, as a commitment, will never buy the land that we are not native to. Nice. So we rent from a local family. It's Emilio Senior and Emilio Junior.
Shout out to the Emilios.
We finally convinced Emilio Senior to come to a yoga class after 6 months.
How old is he?
He's, I think, 70 something.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he's
good going.
He's finally
capture the content. It'd be really good to see.
Exactly. And we are 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, 1 yoga room. We also have an outdoor yoga tent. A couple of swimming pools, and then we have bicycles to take you on a 20-minute bike ride to the beach, which is like through country lanes, and you go past the polo horses, and there's peacocks, and it's
sounds very lush.
It feels exotic.
I was gonna say it sounds surreal.
Yeah. And it's only 2 hours away on a plane, so I flew here for £40. Like it's not always £40, but it's
given enough advance, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And then what's that been like? Like what's it been like jumping from London with its temperamental weather conditions to this tropical climate? I'm assuming leaving everything behind, not everything, but picking up and uprooting. What's that been like, the transition?
Well, in truth, not the easiest. And I get upset with entrepreneurs who don't talk about the ladder that they have to climb to get to where they're going. But I spent 1 year trying to buy the lease on a hotel, and at the very last minute, the owner decided to keep it. So 1 year, thousands of pounds, and I'd now quit my job, sold my house.
Damn. So insert sound healing immediately.
Get the bowls out.
Literally.
So, but by this point, I already know that that's where I belong.
Right.
So I have to go.
Committed now, yeah.
Yeah, I have to go. And I went with no plan. Well, I always have Reeset, right? Like that is my baby, and it's been in my mind for 8 years. And it used to be called the Yoga Farm, and then we found it a name, and birthing Reeset for 8 years. And then got there, and my partner and I, we actually also explored mainland Spain. We got a camper van. We looked at properties the whole way around the whole of Spain. Amazing. And still ended up in Majorca because it's just calling. Yeah. And since then we've been learning Spanish and trying to understand cultural norms and cultural customs. And then also just trying to transition out of the hardest thing, which is not surprising, I don't think, is getting out of London time.
Right.
Like we will rush. There was a point where we were rushing everything. We get up in the morning, like, but you've got to do this, and we've got to do this, and and I'm like, whoa.
Slow down.
Yeah, but that probably took nearly a year.
Yeah.
And you don't realise how exhausting it is until,
I know how exhausting it is. I wake up with a list of things to do. And I write lists. And I even send my list to my partner. This is what we have to do today. This is like the most random of lists. And you realise that you've made your day busy before you even opened your eyes,
It's just, you have to be productive.
Yeah.
I was saying the other day, like I hadn't taken paracetamol for nearly 6 months, but I used to take paracetamol because I couldn't bear the thought of anything hindering my productivity level. It's like self-medicating your life, right?
Must stay awake.
Must stay fresh, but must also keep up with social life. And so it's definitely a choice, and I didn't know how the transition would be, and I didn't know if I would like it. I live in a national park, and I speak to the ducks every day now. Like it's very,
life change.
Very different.
What motivated you to do that? What motivated you to pick abroad rather than open something in London?
I had considered England, but I think when you create retreat spaces and you only have 5 to 7 days, you really need to take yourself out of the
hustle and bustle, like, of your
space.
Bustle, yeah.
And the best way to do that is to completely change your environment. So for me, the 2-hour flight is a good enough commute for you to then get out, feel a different vibration of earth, and sink into your retreat.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm going to come and visit.
Oh, please come. Please come.
I'm absolutely going to come visit.
I'm actually going to try and get you to have a retreat with us.
Oh, I'd love to. And just talking to our peeps out there who are new to wellness. I mean, we're seasoned wellness babes. Those who are trying to get into wellness, or just like young startup entrepreneurs thinking about opening a wellness space or holding a small space for themselves or their friends. What advice would you give? Do's and don'ts.
Always just start. I just always say that the hardest thing is just to start.
So
get your best friends, get them in a circle, and open up a conversation. See how you feel about actually being a healer, and how you feel about holding a space that is you don't know what anyone's going to bring to your space. So a space that is open and a space that is protected.
That's it.
So yeah, just start.
Just start, get on with it. That's how Body City was born. I mean, Body City was born just from me running around like a lunatic doing stretch therapy for everyone. But in terms of the media leg, me and my cousin Courtney, who's gone off to pastures new and traveling and working abroad now, but that's how this started. This was me and her, coffee in my kitchen, having a good chin wag about wellness. And then we sat there, we was like, we should record this. And I was like, yeah, we should be recording this. And she's a bit dubious. And then I said, no, we're going to record this. Let's do it. Let's sit in. And for a long time, we were recording these, just me and her, just on my camera at home, on my couch. You'll see like one of the very, very first episodes of me, like probably bread in the background, you know? And it was because we just did it. And I think for a lot of people, the best advice is, like you said, is just start. Don't think too much about the road ahead. If you're passionate about it, if you've got this calling to help people, which I think to be in this space, you have to, it's a selfless thing to be, it's a selfless place to be in. And you've got this natural urge, natural calling. You like helping people, you like holding space, you want to be with like-minded people, go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
Again, good advice for the
start.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
I'm always happy anyway, but I'm really glad that you're here. And I feel like we really touched on some really amazing topics and tasks. I feel like, I'm staring at this bowl and I really want to hear it.
Yeah.
Before we do though, I created these cards. I think I mentioned to you earlier. Just some like random question cards on there, just to like bring our session to a nice close. So I'm gonna have you pick one.
Okay.
And you're gonna read out the question.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna answer it, and then we're gonna have a little bit of a sound healing.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Cool. All right. So pick a card, any card.
Beautiful cards.
Thank you. All right. Oops. Dropping it all over the place. Ooh.
It's a big question.
Oh God, do you want to pick another one?
No, it's okay. Got this. Okay, what is a quality you admire in others and strive to cultivate in yourself?
This is not for me. This is for you.
I know.
I'm
just telling you what the.
Damn, can you read it again? Because I'm thinking about it, I was like, damn, I don't know what that answer is. Can you read it again?
So what is a quality you admire in others and strive to cultivate in yourself?
Tell us, Beck.
I think it's around acceptance, and I truly treasure one of my best friends comes to mind, and she has a self-acceptance level that like radiates on other people, and she's always like, you should be a 10 out of 10 in your own life.
Love that.
And it's not the biggest of sayings or speeches, but it really hits.
Yeah.
So that would be mine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to keep that, and you're going to sign it for me, and I'm going to put it back in the pile.
Deal.
And yeah, so now we're very, very fortunate. It's the first time this has happened on Body City so far, but I'm going to have a very short sound healing from the lovely Becca. I'm going to close my eyes. When someone has sound healing, how do you recommend they be?
comfortable.
To receive it, just comfortable. Eyes closed or open?
So I would say
I'm going to sit next to you.
Our participants, just that they are comfortable, warm, and in a quiet space. Yeah. And I brought with me one bowl. It's called the Grandmother. And it is designed to bring out inner wisdom, ancestral knowledge. And it's my favourite.
Very grateful.
So gently close down the eyes. Find a comfortable position. There's nowhere else for you to be right now. Just be grateful that you are giving yourself this time and this space. We're going to have a couple of minutes of sound, and then we'll all come back together. So just enjoy. Okay.
That was so special.
Yay. You're so welcome.
That was really special. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel really good.
So welcome.
Yeah, I saw a lot of colour.
Yeah. Any particular colour?
Orange.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Does that have any connotation?
Sacral chakra.
Vibes. Gorgeous.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Passion.
Oh, it's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. Amazing. Becca, where can people find you? Where can we tell them to go and find you? What are you doing now? What's coming up?
So coming up, we have got, so throughout 2025, we're going to be launching all-night sound baths in city locations across Europe. So if you have ever wanted to have a night in a hotel that isn't in a hotel bed, but is probably in a hall or room, and you want to try sound healing whilst being under a nice blanket, that is your opportunity to do so. With sound healing for that kind of length of time will